As you know, continuing through the length of this exhibit, the virtual tour can be accessed, so you can come back and revisit these pieces as often as time allows, and we invite you to engage, to really zoom in and use that digital access as best as one can, and it brings these pieces to life and into your homes to engage with them. We thank you for being a part of the virtual tour. I'd like now to transition into the live conversation part of our evening. I'm very, very honored and pleased to be here with Ava Avione, as she's so kindly agreed to join us for this conversation this evening. It's just an absolute pleasure to be with her wonderful work, but also her rich and highly varied experience in the art world. So may I take this opportunity to introduce Ava Avione for the first time from Middletown Arts Center to all of our viewers, to all of our guests, to our members of the Middletown Arts Center. Ava, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I think an airplane is going over.
Well, we get airplanes and we get motorcycles. You know, we're right in the center of it all here at you know, the crossroads of many places, but that's what makes it interesting.
Yes, and I love being here, and the exhibit is magnificent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, your work shows so well with Alana Clearlakes, and it's really a joy. You know, we launch exhibits 4 to 5 a year, and usually they're a little busier, but we've had this opportunity with your kind participation with Alana's to be able to focus in a much more detailed, larger grouping of work. And I think that's where your work shows to its greatest extent, to its best aspect.
Well, I think you've done a beautiful job, and the lighting is exquisite, and the display is exquisite, and the interaction with Alana's work is just beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, it's the credit to the tireless efforts of our program director, Lisa Kaplan, our board of directors, Amanda Martin, and all of the supporting Middletown Arts Center staff that without, we couldn't put an exhibit together of this scale, and certainly of you know, work of this caliber. It's really a wonderful process, and one that we hope that our viewers, our members, all of our attending guests this evening continue to enjoy, as we couldn't do what we do without any of you. At this point, I'd like to introduce a little bit more about Ava's work, her background, as we move into some close-up and detailed image play of her work. Our technical staff is going to give you, the viewers at home, an opportunity to see Ava's work up close and in great detail. As I move through this, let me introduce a little bit more about Ava's background as a visual artist. Here we are going into detail of the images. Be with you momentarily. We've got a slight digital delay. This is the joys of virtual exhibits and our technical reach. Here we are, wonderful. Ava, would you like to introduce this first piece, please?
Yes, I believe this is the...
this is, I think, from the Celebration of Life series.
Okay, this is from the Celebration of Life, and it's also a celebration of life and death. And it encompasses celebration in all aspects of life and death, in our encompassing and our embracing all of humanity, all of the stages of humanity, all of the various lives, births and deaths that we've gone through, and it celebrates all of it. And that was the purpose behind this painting. And it's, I hope, communicates that. As you can see, the top part of the painting is more skeletal and the bottom is more human form. And it's figurative with the figures of life and death coming together into a great celebration. All my pieces have to do with celebration.
That's
Color,
lovely.
light, beauty, sound, dimension, and movement.
For those of you who'd like to get to know a little bit about Ava's background, allow me to share this brief biography of her life and her work. Ava Avione is a visual artist, architect, pilot, poet, and humanitarian. Ava is exhibiting with MAC for the first time, as mentioned. Her work is internationally recognized and has been collected by over 100 major corporations and museums. Additionally, Ava's work is in private, foundation, and state collections internationally, including that of the King and Queen of Thailand, the British monarchy, the Kennedy family, the King and Queen of Tonga, important ruling families of the United Arab Emirates, the Vatican, and more. Ava Avione has been collected by such luminaries as Madonna, Aretha Franklin, Willie Nelson, and many others. Ava has worked with and supported many charitable foundations such as the Golda Meir Foundation and the Gandhi Foundation. She is a master artist who paints to explore energy, and she expresses herself through many diverse styles, from superrealism to the abstract to dimensional expressionism. Ava was born in 1942 with the given name of Pamela Jean Weston. She started painting as a small child under the tutelage of her grandfather, an architect and contractor. She continued her education by attending the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Oregon, where she graduated in 1972 with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. Ava served an apprenticeship directly under Frank Lloyd Wright at the Taliesin West in Phoenix. Ava has also painted under the names Mama de Louvre and Pamela Jean Weston. She created the movement called Dimensional Expressionism. For 50 years, Ava has painted prolifically. While traveling internationally, Ava opened 80 museums sequentially across the planet, with 80 more in the United States, all of which have spearheaded a new movement to bring artists into their own museum systems worldwide. Each painting has at least 88 layers of intention, inspiration, form, color, geometry, and dimension, taking reality from the third dimension into infinite dimensions. Richard Frey, ISA, an highly acclaimed international art appraiser, has said it well. Whether painting the unknown or the known, there are elements of the depths of insight, perception, and skill that makes Ava a master artist. Well, Ava, what a lifetime.
It's been very wonderful.
What a lifetime of work.
Yes, it's been a wonderful life of experience and connection to people, to countries, to cultures, to the world. It's,
To the world.
very,
Absolutely.
very, very inspired to do it and very inspired to share it.
Isn't that lovely? Could you tell us a little bit about your process? I think as we all can imagine, we stand back away looking at the work, wondering what the artist's process is like when you are standing before a blank canvas and feeling the inspiration to begin working. Tell us what moves you to put brush to canvas and to start your own process of expressionism?
Well, I start with, first of all, finding the right location on the planet and then gathering the materials that are needed to create. And usually it's a pure archival pigment that's pure, unadulterated, without mixing any other things with it. And so even the titanium white is pure pigment white. So the colors have the depth of looking at a car. You know, when you look at a car and you see the depth of that red, it's like that. And I wanted to capture that in a form that made the art sing with color, just immerse you in the color. And so when I would touch a brush to a pigment, that pigment would actually force my hand onto the canvas to start creating. And then from there it would grow. And as it was growing, it would start to take form, usually of a figure and an expression of that figure, and then of an energy that would start to build and build as with each layer, as there are at least 88 layers in each piece. And each layer of intention became more and more alive until I felt it was done.
Do you find that the process of these many layers, these 88 layers, for instance, does it come all at once, or does it come over a period of time and phases?
It comes over a period of time because each layer has to dry in between. And so it does come over a period of time, and each piece is created, and then I'll work on one piece, and then I'll go and work on another piece, and then on another piece. So I'll have many canvases set up so that they can dry in between. That's the physical process. It's not the emotional process, it's not the dimensional process, but it's the actual physical process of creation.
Process. Tell me more about the dimensional process.
Oh, well,
the multi-dimensional process. You speak about, well, in a sort of etheric way versus the earthly way, the dimensional levels that you express in your work. I'm intrigued.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate it, because the work is an exploration of all the universes that I don't know anything about. And so the process of creating the art is one of, how do I learn about that energy? How do I understand that energy? How can I communicate that energy? That's what the art is about.
Such an exploration. I'm sure every painting
it's totally every layer is an exploration. And I go, oh my goodness. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yes, I see that. So it's like every moment there is a cognition that occurs. There's an enlightenment that occurs. There's something there that wasn't there before, that I never knew before. And that's very exciting to me. And that just makes me want to paint all the more.
Yes, I'm sure it just leads you from sort of one expression to the next, and into, of course, your developing series.
And then the series develops from that, and I get an idea, and then all of a sudden I want to explore that idea. And so then I start to recreate it and memorize each layer, so to speak. So I have an understanding of it, just like if you were a child and you were learning your ABCs and you were reading a book and you had to learn the words. It's like learning that energy and how to embody that energy and how to communicate that energy. So then I go through a learning process of creating anywhere from 10, say, almost to 1,000 different pieces, using and exploring those energies that have been discovered, which many other people may know about, but I didn't.
Well, and how particular they must be to you and your own dialogue with them.
The dialogue with the multi-dimensional universes becomes just so wonderful, so wonderful to know and understand that which created our beautiful planet, and that which is here, and that which can be explored, and that which can contribute. It's just been a process of complete delight to me.
How interesting. In the beginning, you mentioned, in the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned how you like to find a place to paint. And now I know you've lived all over the world. Can you share with us a little bit more about your experiences painting in studio or in certain places
Certainly.
throughout the world, and how that's
I would be
influenced?
guided to go. I would just sort of have this inspiration and feeling. I always kept a studio in California because I had to have a place to ship things back to. And then I would travel and say, for example, in Africa, I did the jungle series. And there I lived in deep in Africa in the jungle and built a studio there and was able to create that and bring all the paints through the jungle, if you can believe it, and create them and then ship them from there over to Brazil, to the Amazon, where I worked again and built another studio 30 feet off the ground out of bamboo, and I continued that series. And so it would be like that. And sometimes I would, like when I painted at the Vatican, I painted in the main hall there with where the Pieta is and so forth. That was a completely different experience, going to the Vatican and having them welcome me to paint in the foyer of the whole.
Well, could you find a more impressive classical environment to influence your work from a very tribal and nature-driven environment to one of the great classical examples of architecture?
Yes, so that was the full range. That is kind of the full range, and the pieces that are here, like the conflict of light and dark, the jungle pieces were in the Amazon and in Africa, and the conflict between light and dark was done in Dallas, Texas, where I found a huge 50,000 square foot building, which I was able to bring my semi-trailers into, unload all my paints and equipment, and set up and do smaller pieces like that conflict between light and dark. And that explored the relationship between light and dark, because it's such a main theme of life. You know, people saying, oh, it's the dark side, oh, it's the light side, oh, blah, blah, blah. You know, back and forth, back and forth. So it was an exploration of that conflict and a resolution of that conflict. And I did hundreds of those pieces to have an understanding of how that occurs and how that this planet with one sun creates light and dark, right?
Yes.
And then it showed me all the different planets and universes that have much more than one sun, and then many more suns, and then universes of thousands of suns. And it took me into the realms of exploration that beyond which I can even understand.
And so your work just became so prolific.
Yeah.
And
so that's how it becomes prolific, is through wanting to know more, wanting to understand more, and wanting to be able to share that with the world.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
You've met some very influential people throughout the length of your career. Any particular stories that come to mind of a particular conversation, a particular meeting that had a quite great impact on you?
Well, things would happen very interestingly. Once I was in a studio in Rama, New Mexico, next to where Bob Dylan used to have his music studio, and I was painting. I remember painting people as they were leaving Bali during the tsunami. And as they were leaving their bodies, I was painting them. And I got into the middle of a nose, and I know this sounds strange, and I get a phone call. And I answer the phone, and it's somebody who's at Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills at a cafe who's overheard a conversation about my artwork and has called me, given Martin my phone number, and called me up and said, would you come back to California and paint here again and leave New Mexico? And I said, well, certainly, because I always follow what happens. And so that person sent the abilities for me to have all my semis and so forth brought back to California. And I had not seen the place I was going. And when I got there, it was a mile-long driveway filled with cypress trees and this magnificent house that had been the headquarters for the Maharishi's summer palace. I had no idea that that was there, with infinity pools and amazing things. So I spent 3 years there painting. And
as a residency of a type,
What?
As a residency of a type, I assume.
I didn't understand.
Like a residency.
It was a residency. No, it wasn't a residency. It was, the house was empty. Nobody could handle the energies there. If they put somebody there, they would leave right away. It was a very powerful energy. And it was next to the Lemurian Center. It was on 1,000 acres of white sage. And so that energy was such a support to being able to create. I had not had such a magnificent place with infinity pools as my home, so to speak. So I painted there, and the communications that I had there, although I'm not a follower of anybody or anything, that place was given to me, and the patron that I had there who had built it for the Maharishi, I did some paintings of his children in exchange for my 3 years there.
How extraordinary.
Yeah, and he was a very amazing person. He had done all the funding for the Maharishi. Was a young man, and he would come. As a matter of fact, he even brought the Dalai Lama to come and see my work. And it was a very amazing experience. That ones that stand out. And as far as the others, the things that I enjoy most, the children when they come through the studio, the children come in and often they'll say, "Oh, you're one of my mommies." And I love that because children relate to the art. They totally relate to it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's always wonderful to see work through a child's eyes, isn't it? Because they don't have, of course, any of the perspectives
they don't
that
have.
we
Their mother would say, "Come on, dear, let's go, let's go."
Quite
and
pure.
they'd go, "Oh, this is very interesting. Oh, well, no, we don't want to go, Mommy. We want to stay."
I'm sure they're so drawn to the color as well, and anything that you can do to influence a child creatively at that age, to give them not only an appreciation but a desire to create art as well.
That's right. And that's been really one of my motivating forces, because there's so much of the children don't get that inspiration. They're told how to paint or not to paint or whatever. I remember my first experiences with that and how I was discouraged to do so, and overcame that. And I would like to give that to every child on the planet.
Well, maybe that's a great part of why you have also found this period of time to participate, to contribute to the Middletown Arts Centre, which, as you know, and as our viewers know, is so committed to education. It's so committed to reaching out to the children in the community and making art a very accessible, livable part of every day.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
I hope that many of the children here in Lake County and beyond get an opportunity to see your work, to see this exhibit, but that all of our viewers, again, can interact with Ava's work. It's very, very powerful to stand in front of one of her quite wonderful large format pieces and, again, find that essence of ourselves in what we see.
And who has inspired me, you asked, I say every artist that has sat on my shoulder and whispered in my ear throughout all of time and all of history, I embrace and love them.
Oh, that's lovely. Ava, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we had more time, but perhaps over the length of this exhibit, we may revisit and have another conversation. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of so much of your wonderful life and experience.
Well, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I would be happy to contribute more and talk more because it delights me to do so.
It's lovely.
Thank you. And thank you and the gallery and Lisa and Jackie and everybody involved for making this occur. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Very wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're a treasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.